Hi, my name is Jasmine, the sequel, and I am not relatable. So, this is my first video ever to YouTube, and what prompted me to make this video is Foodie Beauty and Charlie Gold and the ridiculousness that is Twitter. Now, I'm on there. I have a personal account. No, I will not share that with you. I also have an Instagram account, which I will also not share. I will share another one. I am on there pretty regularly, and I have noticed the nonsensicalness of what's happening there currently. And I kind of wanted to give my own 2 cents on it as a woman of color who is not Black. I will, of course, also be doing kind of like my makeup because this sort of stuff gets me very heated. To start off, if anybody here is new somehow, the names Charlie Gold and Foodie Beauty are not the reason you clicked on this video. Can't imagine why, but if they're not the reason that you clicked on this video, then let me give you a quick, brief, like a snippet of background. Foodie Beauty is a mukbanger. Mukbang is a Korean word for eating show, basically. It started originally as a beauty channel, hence the name Foodie Beauty, right? And more she's sort of tried to brand herself more as foodie than beauty. And not even that, in my own personal opinion. Now, I am not a foodie. I will very freely admit that in the wise words of Chef Ramsay, I have a palate like a cow's behind. My husband is a foodie, though. He is very careful about what he eats. And it's not to say that he doesn't enjoy junk, like, right? Everyone does every once in a while. But the junk that he enjoys is very much so like, you know, like every once in a while, he'll really want like an In-N-Out burger. And for him, that is like something that he does because he likes the taste of like a you know, fast foodie made burger. Occasionally. More often than not, though, he doesn't even like a griddle made burger. He wants like proper charcoal, you know, cooked burgers because that's just who he is. He's a fancy bitch. And I love him, but he is a fancy bitch. Sorry, the aforementioned fancy bitch walked in. If the lighting looks a little different, it's because I have this little Amazon mirror thing and it's like illuminated. So I turned that on because I thought I needed more light. I personally like all of my spaces lit like the interior of the sun. Anyway, what I was saying, my very long way of saying was that essentially, you know, what Chantal and a lot of these mukbangers eat tends to be just fast food. It's, you know, just fast food, just stuff slathered in cheese. And I don't think you can call yourself a foodie at that point. I think foodie means that, you know, you have very delicate taste buds. You know, some people are like super tasters, as they're called. And I think that she's not that, right? She might have the capability of being that, but currently as it stands, 90% of what she eats is just junk food. But that's, I guess I'm just arguing at semantics. She has a long history of hating another channel and hating just reaction channels in general, but very specifically, she does not like a reaction channel called Charlie Gold. Now, Charlie Gold started off as a Amberlynn Reid reaction channel. And over the course of time, she's shifted more towards Foodie Beauty, more out of, I would say, spite, maybe, than anything else. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not taking a shot at Charlie Gold here. I personally really like her. But, you know, she's not, I guess you could say she's not exactly nice about the way that she talks about Chantal. And Chantal is not someone who can take criticism at all. She's incredibly thin-skinned. She's incredibly reactionary. And the moment anyone says or does anything that she doesn't like, she'll pop right off. And then just as quickly realize that this makes her look real bad, she'll delete the whole thing, you know. She'll delete anything on her community tab. She'll delete anything that's on her YouTube channel. She'll delete, if you know, anything on Instagram if she doesn't like it. She's very, very reactionary. She says things and then she immediately deletes them, you know, things like that. Now, Charlie Gold and her have a history. They go back and forth, you know, Charlie says some stuff, Chantal pops off and she says some stuff, and then they go back and forth like this for a while. And for a while, that's all it was just them talking shit back and forth. And honestly, kind of entertaining. Charlie is very, very entertaining in her delivery. I personally find Chantal to be nearly unwatchable as it is. Same thing with Amberlynn Reid, same thing with any of the girls in the Amberverse, as it's called. I can't stand watching them on their own. They're just nothing like personal, just they bore me. I don't like watch a lot of stuff about people's lives in general. Somebody whose life that I do like to follow, who I think is actually very interesting, and they cover kind of like a similar topic is actually another reaction channel, OnProgramSituation. Val is fantastic. She is really funny. She's got a very odd, quirky sense of humor. And because of that, they're very entertaining. She's very entertaining to watch. I watch pretty much any video she'll put out, like literally anything, because her personality is great. The rest of the girls aren't like that. And Chantal in particular is very, very dry because she doesn't do very much. She doesn't leave her house all that much, even outside of the quarantine. And she doesn't have a lot of friends. She doesn't just, even going to the store, she doesn't do a lot, you know. There's not a lot of stuff happening in her life, let me just say. So there's like, all she will talk about is stuff that she's done in her past, which is fine. If she wants to talk about that, that's fine. But a lot of those stories too feel very, very made up. So a lot of people tend to enjoy Chantal's channel through reaction channels, people who will talk about what she's talked about. And that makes her, honest to goodness, a lot more enjoyable to watch. She is, like I said, incredibly dry without it. So to have Charlie or Val from OnProgramSituation or Sarah from Aphrodite's Peach talk about her, talk about what she's doing, give their own opinions on it, sometimes reconstruct timelines, that is much more entertaining than anything she talks about, because it's either fake or boring, honestly, in my opinion. And you don't have to agree with me. You can find her very entertaining if you'd like, but there is a symbiotic relationship there. A really good example of that is currently, if you look at Amberlynn Reid's channel, her views have dropped significantly from what they were pre, I guess, cancer, right? She had a ton of views pre-cancer, and a lot of that was because people were reacting. They were talking about her. You know, you keep your name in everyone's mouth and you're gonna get views. Even I got sucked in that a little bit, where when no one was all of a sudden talking about her, I went to her, you know, a couple of videos and I was like, what is happening with Amber? And of course, because I find it incredibly boring, you know, I stopped watching, right? And now I don't care, I guess, give or take. If someone puts out a video every once in a while and they've got something to say, I'll watch it. But because she's not being talked about quite as much, her views have fallen. It's an undeniable fact. You can take a look at her social blade if you don't believe me. Or even just, you know, scroll on over to her YouTube page. Just scroll down, take a look at her videos post-cancer, and then take a look at her videos pre-cancer, and you'll notice that there's a big difference. Chantal's the same way, in my opinion. I think that if everyone stopped talking about her, Chantal's channel would die, because outside of a hardcore fan base of people who like her, and probably a few feeders in there too, there's not a lot of people who like Chantal as she is. Her content is problematic. She doesn't put a lot of effort into her videos. A lot of them sound very, very made up, a la Tana Mojo, like 6 months to a year into her channel. And it's fine if they're made up. They're not entertaining either. They're just kind of gross, and a lot of people are grossed out by it, which I think is a fair reaction, right? And she will herself admit that she's not everyone's cup of tea. The issue with Chantal is that it's not just a matter of her being unlikable or her being gross or whatever. The issue comes in is that she cannot take criticism from anybody. And because she is unable to do that, she tends to attack people when she gets criticism. She perceives any criticism as an attack to herself. So in her mind, I think she genuinely thinks that she is just defending herself, as any person has the right to do. And that's fair. I think if Chantal wants to make reaction videos to any of the other reaction channels, more power to you, sister, do it. I think that would be entertaining as hell. I would watch the hell out of that. But she cannot construct an argument for why something someone does or says is wrong, and she cannot take the criticism. So a reaction channel is not like becoming a reaction channel is not an option that's open to her. She instead becomes very, very mad, very, very upset, and she will attack said channels. And if you have watched Chantal for a while, you will notice that there's a few channels that she seems to hold a particular hatred for, right? Charlie Gold is the biggest one, of course, but there's also Michael B. Petty. There is Callie from Life of a Free Spirit. There is, a little while ago, there was Biggest Mikey. And she's even gone after Manal Zain. And if you look at all of them very, very hard, you might be able to spot something that is very similar about all of them. I myself am not that perceptive, so I can't quite put my hand on it, but it's at the, at the edge of my head what could be similar about all of those people. All jokes aside, of course, they're all, POCs. They're all people of color. And that in and of itself, I think, is a microaggression, because there's a ton of channels that are also like white, that are, or white seeming at any rate, like by passing. And she never seems to attack one of them. One of my favorites, who no longer makes videos, is Danny Suze. And she's fantastic. First of all, if you want to go back and watch her like backlog of videos, I recommend it. But her videos, she even said, she's like, Chantal's not going to attack her because A, she's relatively skinnier, and B, she's white. Chantal doesn't really attack white people. All of her ire seems to be aimed towards people of color, and in particular towards Black people, or BIPOC people, I should say. Now, I cannot look into somebody's heart and tell you if they're a racist. What I can tell you is whether an action is racist, and whether you think that is a microaggression or not. The way that she singles out channels by people of color to attack, I would say is a microaggression. Now, I am not a Black person. I am a person of color. I am an immigrant. And, you got a little melanin going on. Looking at like a range of foundations, I generally tend to fall like directly in the middle of like a warm shade. Actually, not even that. I think I'm just neutral. Yeah, it might just be like middle of the middle. So I wonder if she's going to find what I have to say as being offensive. Genuinely curious. The way I see the situation is thus. Not being a BIPOC person, a lot of the very violent racism that is aimed towards them is not something that I've had to deal with. And I can genuinely tell you that it's awful that they've had to deal with it. And I'm, I am both saddened by their experience and like in a weird way kind of like happy that wasn't my experience. And if you say that you are not at least a little bit happy to not be treated like that, then you are ignoring, then I don't think that you live in a rational world. You cannot look at the way that BIPOC people are treated in today's society and think, oh yeah, I'd be okay with being treated that way, right? Because then you're fundamentally missing something. Nobody should be okay with being treated that way. That's why it should outrage you. That's why I'm thankful that I have that privilege. Understanding that you have that privilege is important. And I think this is where Chantal sort of lacks the ability to do so. I don't know if it's whether she lacks the ability to be self-reflective or what it is, but she genuinely does not understand that that the reception that she has for a lot of things, right? The discrimination that she feels, that she faces is, first of all, it's changeable, right? I saw this on Twitter. Someone was like, you can't walk off the black, right? She can lose weight if she chooses to. She can diet, she can do exercise, she can do bariatric surgery, she can get therapy. And if she has the willpower, she can genuinely lose the weight, get skin removal surgery, and live her best life. There is never going to be a time in their lives where Callie, where Charlie, where Michael are going to not be black. They will always be black. So comparing one to one is not fair. Second, microaggressions, I think people misunderstand what a microaggression is. A microaggression is not an overt act of racism. Sometimes a microaggression is not even something that you're consciously aware of the fact that you're doing it, right? Like, I will tell you from my own experience, I've done it. Like, that sucks to admit, but I have done it myself. I was in a big city and I was walking around and I saw a bunch of young people, not of any particular color, just a bunch of young people sort of congregating around a light post, and it was like darker at night. I was with my husband and I immediately got nervous and I put my phone into my pocket and I kind of like huddled into my coat a little bit. And that's because I am scared of young people. I don't know why. Like, groups of young people really frightened me. And I've, you know, had experiences in the past that I think jade my view, but that's a microaggression against young people. That's a group of people that I am judging based on nothing other than a characteristic that they cannot help. Sorry, distractions. Back to what I was saying. When you put a filter on a picture on Instagram, the whole picture is filtered, right? It's not that one corner of it is filtered. It's not that just your face is filtered. You can go in, you can fine tune things a little bit later, but when you apply a filter, everything is filtered. That's kind of how it is with racism. When that is your worldview, everything you say percolates through that filter. Everything you say has a tinge of it, right? So I think that it automatically discredits the majority of what you have to say when you hold racist ideologies, especially when it comes to race, especially when it comes to things like that, right? So that's what Chantal does. She just aligns herself with racists because those tend to be the only people who tend to give nothing but unfiltered hate towards Charlie, because Charlie does have points. She does make good, cogent points as to Chantal's behavior, and Chantal cannot have that in any way, shape, or form. This particular live stream that she did just a few days ago and then immediately, of course, deleted. Now, I can understand, being a person who has anger issues myself, that when you are heated, you tend to pop off and say things that you would not otherwise have said. That is not an excuse, because you still said those things. This is why when I am mad, I tend to step away from the situation and I tend to not talk to anybody for a couple of days about it, because if I talk to them in the moment, I will say stupid shit that I will regret, right? Think twice, speak once. That should be everybody's philosophy in life, forever and ever. Chantal does not understand this or does not care. And quite frankly, at this point, it doesn't matter which one of those is true, because on top of that entire stream, she also doubled down on it. We'll get to that. Now, to what Chantal said. First of all, she threatened Charlie with doxing her family in particular. She threatened Charlie twice in the context of that video. She once talked about running her over with her, what was it? 5XL scooter, right? My mirror turned off. But that's not the only time she threatened her. She threatened her before. You know, she's made threats of getting her channel erased. She's made a whole bunch of threats towards Charlie. And when you're threatening a Black woman on the internet during a time when we're having a national crisis about the number of Black bodies that are negatively impacted by police violence, when you're saying they should go back to jail, I cannot begin to tell you how awful that is for you to say, right? That is a genuinely awful thing that a genuinely awful human being says. I am not a fan of a great many number of people, but there's very few people that I would think to myself that I should wish them that kind of harm. And Chantal loves to pretend that she is high and mighty, because she will go back and she'll be later. She's like, oh, I don't want to engage in any of this ugliness. I just want to live my life, you know? But that's not what she's doing, because she pops off. You said what you said. Say it with your chest, you know? Either stand behind what you said or don't say it. Simple as that. To get back to the microaggressions, she also called Charlie Gold Charlie Cole. Now, comparing Black people to coal is, fun fact, also not an old thing. Actually, a lot of blackface back in the day was done with soot. It was done with coal powder. essentially. And the reason for it was pretty simple. Coal is generally considered worthless, right? So I get that she was like that she thought in her head that it was like a play on, oh, Charlie Gold, so Charlie Coal, because gold is so valuable and rare and coal is worth nothing. That's neither creative nor inventive, and it's an old racist trope, and the fact that that's where your mind went to is upsetting, right? Because if she had just, that's why it's a microaggression and not a macroaggression or plain out racism, because she doesn't think that she's being racist because in her head, she didn't call Charlie Gold, Charlie Coal, because Charlie's black. But that's a thing that people have done. And the fact that she doesn't know this, the fact that she is not acknowledging it now is problematic. The fact that you didn't think that in your head and then you thought, oh, actually, that's not a good thing to say. I should criticize her for something else. You want to criticize Charlie, criticize her for the right thing. Say her delivery is way too harsh. She is way too harsh on fat people. That the kind of shaming that she provides personally triggers Chantal, and that Chantal should say something like, you know, for me personally, all this criticism, all it does is it makes me want to eat more. So if Charlie's goal is to get me to eat less, then she's just being counterproductive. That's a fair criticism you could lobby at her, right? But you're not going to do that. You're going to continue to stick with your nonsense bullshit and continue to be racist. Because those are the only cogent arguments that, to you, that are cogent arguments that you can form. Now, I don't think that Chantal has the capability of self-reflection. I genuinely think that she should see a therapist, because being introspective is not something that I am good at either, to be very frank with you. I am not a very introspective person. I am not great at looking at my own actions, being like, gee, I wonder why I did that. That's why I have a therapist, fun fact. I think that Chantal could benefit greatly from a therapist. But in addition to Chantal not caring and not understanding how her actions affect others, and honestly a lot more of the not caring than the not understanding part, she also feels that she's got her entire life under control and therefore doesn't need any input from anybody ever, even though a therapist is literally a licensed professional and they can help you with your own internal struggles. By the way, this is my plug for therapy, not like anyone in particular or any service in particular, just like in general. I think everybody should talk to a therapist. If you have the means, then please talk to a therapist, because I think everyone can learn something. You don't have to go forever, but I think just talking to somebody every once in a while is good. God, I do not like this eyeshadow. Every time it's fall, I pull it out and I think to myself, this will be the year that I can make the Anastasia Subculture palette work for me. And every year I am let down without a fail. God, that looks patchy and awful. Whatever, I'm not going anywhere anyway. Might as well just leave it. So back to what I was saying. She needs to talk to a therapist. She needs to talk to a therapist about getting her reactionary anger under control. So essentially, she needs to get her actions, her reactions to people saying negative things about her under control before I think she has any hope of ever being able to self-reflect, grow as a person, and just overall even be happier in her own life. I think this is a lot of the same thing that she faces problems with when she's trying to diet. You know, she'll start something very reactionary in a very reactionary way. You know, she'll see something and she's like, oh, that's the miracle cure. And then she'll start like ordering stupid juiced fasts and juice cleanses, and she'll be like, this is the thing for me. And then of course inevitably she'll fail at it, because Chantal has problems with eating. She has I don't know what it is exactly. I am not a licensed professional. I cannot diagnose her, but she definitely has some eating problems. And so she, you know, will engage in self-harmful behavior, and then she is constantly surprised when that self-harmful behavior turns around and bites her in the ass. You know, so she needs to talk to a therapist first and foremost about getting that under control. And then once that's done, she needs to take a lot of time to reflect on what she said and how she said it. And secondarily, to everyone who is saying, well, microaggression is not a thing. Honey, you should live as a non-Black person of color to understand what microaggressions are, because a lot of that same racist shit that BIPOC people have to deal with, it gets lobbied at us, which is a lot less intensity, right? It's still there, don't get me wrong, just less, right? It's stuff like having people say to me, well, you must be so happy, right? You're the fair sister between the two of you, right? My little sister's darker than I am. So I got a lot of that growing up. That's a microaggression towards both me and her, making my complexion something that I should be proud of, not my intrinsic capabilities, not my intellect, not anything else about me. And that's a fucked up thing to do, right? So those are microaggressions. I don't think that person means to be blatantly racism. I don't think they are even aware of the fact that what they've said is problematic, but it is problematic. And the origins of it are problematic. And that's how you have to look at this shit. It can't just be, is it blatantly racism? Because just to say if something is blatantly racism or not, and it completely ignores the historical racism that has seeped into the foundations of everything that this country is built on. And I don't just mean like this country as in just America, right? I do genuinely mean Canada and Britain and France and a lot of these other colonizing countries, because they came over, they took all of their ideals and they enforced it on a group of people who never had these value systems before, and all of a sudden created massive problems that to this day people are dealing with. So first and foremost, go talk to a therapist, Chantel, please, please. I'm not saying this in a mean kind of way. I'm not saying this to belittle you. I'm not even saying this for Charlie's sake. I'm saying this for your own sake. Talk to a therapist. Talk to a licensed professional who knows what they're talking about and who will be able to give you, you know, good, unbiased advice. Don't take advice from people on the internet. They don't know anything either, you know, for the most part, right? And go see a therapist, somebody that you like, somebody that you trust, and see them regularly, as in more than once, more than twice, more than 4 times or 5 times. It's funny how therapy builds on itself. It's like when you start working out, right? Which is another thing I personally think Chantel could benefit a lot from. Weight loss or no weight loss, movement is very, very good for your soul. It's very good for your mood. It's actually really good for your digestion too. Just fun fact. But I think that if you saw a therapist and if you talk to them about how you feel and why you eat and why you are the way that you are, I think you would see massive benefits just to your own personal life, right? You don't have to do it for us. Do it to spite us. You know what? Do it that way. Get better and then spite us and come back on here like a skinny legend and talk about how awesome you're doing and how you're going on that Jamaica trip to see your aunt and just spite us. Live your best life, you know? That's what it is. The best revenge is a life well lived. You want to shut Callie up? You want to shut Michael B. Petty up? You want to shut everybody up? You want to shut Charlie Gold up? Live your best fucking life. Become a better person. Talk to a therapist. And you know what? Then you can just say whatever you want, because I'm going to take all my money from YouTube. I'm going to live this amazing life, and y'all still going to be haters. You want to play it that way, you play it that way. But you cannot come on here and call a Black woman coal. You cannot compare her to coal. You cannot support people like Citrine Dream and Peanut and all these other ridiculously racist channels and then be like, well, but I'm the victim here. It's just not how it works. Because as someone who's lived her life primarily dealing with not macro but microaggressions, I can tell you that they are very detrimental. They can be very harmful to a person, and they're a very real thing. And as a white person, Chantel, you've never had to deal with them. So when someone is telling you that you were in the wrong, especially when that person is a group that's affected by these things, listen to them, please. And honestly, read the book White Fragility. I think that would really help you. Now, Chantel doesn't live alone. She has a friend who she lives with. Y'all know of Pete's. Pete's actually seems like somebody who would be very libertarian. So Pete's, in case you were watching this video, I would really like to urge you to talk to Chantal about this and make her understand. I know standing up to Chantal is not your thing. You don't particularly like to do it, but this is important. This is not about you personally. You need to make her understand what her actions are. Now, I had mentioned a little while ago that I'd be coming back to the doubling down. Now, she came back, she popped off on another live stream last night, and she talked about how, Charlie Gold was sending her all these threatening emails, even though even in the original video, she goes back and forth. She's not sure, and she got the email address that she mentioned was not the one that Charlie actually uses, so I highly doubt it was Charlie. She's like, well, I felt threatened and all this and all that, and all Charlie has is the race card and all this ridiculous nonsense. Anyway, so understanding that she had said all these things and understanding that they were wrong rather than admitting fault in this, Chantal decided that the possible best thing to do would be to pop off on another live stream and talk about why she was justified in doing what she was doing. You're not justified, ma'am. If you've made a mistake, it is perfectly acceptable for you just to come online and be like, I fucked up, guys. I'm so sorry. I thought my family was being threatened. I got really, really worked up, and I said some shit I should not have said. She didn't even really need to, if she just said that, I don't even think like 90% of people would be mad at her. I think she didn't even need to have said sorry directly to Charlie, though. That would have been the best thing to do, in my opinion. If she just come online and admitted that she was wrong, I think this stuff would already be over. But Chantal is incapable of that. So she instead has doubled down on her terrible decision and is now accusing people left, right, and center. And without any proof, by the way, she's offered no proof. She hasn't, even though she'd said that she would, she hasn't shown the email that she was planning on, the email that she apparently got from Charlie Gold, quote unquote. So she hasn't shown any of that. But we're just supposed to apparently take her word for it, for such a serious accusation. When you've made a mistake, especially when it's regarding something like racism, and most people honestly are just talking about the unintentional racism, I think it goes a really long way if you admit what you've done wrong and then just promise to do better and try and educate yourself and not repeat the mistakes. That's genuinely all it takes. Most people aren't going to think, oh, well, she meant to be an awful human being. If you admit fault and promise to do better, and especially if you actually do better in the future. Chantal's not willing to do that. She's not willing to admit that she's wrong. She's never willing to admit that she's wrong. And so what that results in is her doubling down on her actions that really she should be distancing herself from. Now, the first one was reactionary, full with microaggressions, where you popped off, said a whole bunch of bullshit that you should not have. Second one was poor decision making. And the second one is what's going to damn you. All of the defensive actions you've taken in light of the first one are what's going to damn you. The first thing that comes out of your mouth, people can forgive. People often do. Often, there's a whole bunch of instances of people saying the N-word when they're singing along to a song or something, and it's a one-time slip, and we're like, shit, I'm so sorry, I shouldn't have said it. Because people understand. Mistakes happen. People are human after all. Most people aren't here to play gotcha with you in real life. The problem is that when you then come onto camera and then you say shit like, well, I didn't know that the N-word was bad. I was ignorant of the fact. That's just not how I grew up, That's when you get into trouble and, people start having a problem with you. If you just say, I'm sorry and promise to do better, I promise you, whoever you are in your life, that if you promise to do better and then do better in the future, 99% of people will forgive you. No one is out here to hold a grudge. Nobody's got that kind of energy just for you. But since you're unwilling to do that, people are not going to give you a second chance because you're not entitled to it. And honestly, you're being a little bit of a brat. So in conclusion, I think that Charlie Gold might be a little bit harsh, but she's not a toxic person. I think Chantal is being a toxic person. And I think all she really needed to do after the first live was say, I'm sorry, I fucked up. I'll do much better in the future, and then not repeated her actions. And the overarching theme of all of this is that Chantal needs to seek professional help. Even if it's not eating related, seek professional help. Do better. And believe me, I cannot stress this enough, but if you actually seek professional help, you will feel so much better. You will do so much better. And if you work at it, who knows? The sky's the limit, you know? One day in the future, you might not have to go to therapy anymore, and you can just live your life like a happy person. Even if you never lose a pound in your entire life, you will still benefit from it, Chantal. Go to therapy and talk to your therapist about your reactive, incendiary anger issues. Talk to her, figure out the root cause, and then fix it. Because this, whatever it is you're doing right now, is not it. You cannot behave this way on the internet and just assume that everything is going to be fine, that people are going to be fine with it, that people are going to forgive you. Some might, some will. A lot of people won't. And also understand that the lifespan of this trend of mukbanging is short. The internet has a very quick turnaround time. Eventually, people are no longer going to be interested in this content. And when they aren't, all of this shit that you're doing is going to make it real hard for you to transition into anything else. So, I mean this from a place of genuine care, right? Please, talk to a therapist, get help, do better, and then be better. It's as simple as that. Well, yeah, you know what I mean. Anywho, thank you so much for watching my video. I will try and make a video every week and put it up. It might be on this topic, it might be on something else, just depends on what catches my fancy. Subscribe, like, give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. If you think I'm wrong about everything, give me a thumbs down and then tell me why. If I'm wrong about something, I want you to tell me, because I'm willing to learn. I've been wrong about a ton of things in the past, and I'm always willing to learn from them. So, thumbs up, thumbs down, totally up to you. Tell me what you liked about the video, what you didn't like about the video. If what you didn't like about the video is the sound quality, I cannot help you right now. I have a very tiny baby, and if he hears me, he will cry, and I don't have a very great setup, and yeah, comment, subscribe, let me know. All right, see ya once more. I'm Jasmine the Sequel, and remember, I am not relatable. Bye.